The National Consumer Commission, also known as the NCC, has issued a statement welcoming the decision by the National Consumer Tribunal to impose an administrative fine of 1 million rand against one of South Africa's telecommunication giants, Vodacom. The tribunal found that Vodacom's conduct was unconscionable by imposing terms and conditions that made it difficult for consumers to cancel their SIM-only contracts. A probe was launched after numerous complaints from consumers alleged the contravention of various sectors of the Consumer Protection Act by the company. To discuss this, we are joined via Teams by Acting National Consumer Commissioner Thezi Mabuza. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Mabuza. I think let's start off with just what were in the claims or the complaints that were made by complainants.
Good morning, Naledi. Thanks for the opportunity. What we had as complaints from consumers is that most of the consumers had a SIM-only contract. And in that case, when they wanted to cancel, they were now settled with those terms that you only cancel by paying a penalty fee of 75% of the remainder of the contract. And then consumers were coerced in this instance to pay upfront within 12 days to pay and then confirm that they have paid before their contracts could be cancelled.
Yeah, and this was between 2020 financial year, 2020-2021 and 2021-2022. How many complaints did you receive? I mean, it's interesting. I'm quite fascinated as well by the active citizenry of South Africans coming forward to complain.
In this instance, we had around 700 complaints, but then we wanted to sample especially those that were SIM-only contract, most of them, and then we sampled 21 complaints from those wherein their contracts actually they could not cancel, and then that they could not even afford, most of them, that penalty fee of 75%. So we sampled from 700 to 21.
What was the argument that Vodacom then was putting on the table when addressed by the National Consumer Commission on the matter? I mean, how do they explain a cancellation penalty of 75% of the remaining contract?
They told us that actually they had overhead costs like onboarding of the consumer, wherein now when they do your background checks and all that, that is a cost to them, the infrastructure cost, and then that actually they had in this instance as well projected that they will receive an income, they will make that infrastructure available for you as a consumer. And just to reiterate, Naledi, what we saw is that these consumers, actually, most of them did not even have a handset. It was only for the SIM access for airtime or for data.
Yeah, very concerning. And I'm looking at the statement, of course, from the National Consumer Commission. It says the tribunal also found that Vodacom's conduct is unconscionable in that it continued to bill consumers after they duly cancelled their contracts or attempted to do so, and by referring such consumers to debt collectors, blacklisting them with credit bureaus and threatening them with legal action. I mean, this is really concerning. What's the action then that the Commission takes against Vodacom in the matter?
That's why we referred them to the tribunal, and then all that we wanted is that most of those consumers for now, their contracts have been cancelled, and then also their names as well have been cleared, so they are able now to transact and all that. But all that we are saying is that we are going to be watching the space because they have not been interdicted, and we assume that if we are going to receive such similar complaints again, all we have to do is investigate and then issue a compliance notice for Vodacom straight away to just cancel those contracts, because this is really unfair and it's unconscionable on the side of the consumers that are financially burdened. Because if somebody decides that I cannot afford this contract, you cannot actually force them and keep them on with the contract so that you exacerbate the financial burden that a consumer is suffering.
Yeah, what you've done here as well is look at some of the legislation and I suppose the rights of consumers, and talk to us a little bit about, you know, where really, according to, from a legislative point of view, where they have erred.
Yes, what we had seen is that the first thing is the Consumer Protection Act says a consumer has a right to cancel a fixed term contract. That would mean that that right comes first. And then if there is any other monies paid, then it's the duty of the supplier now to say to us that, yes, we have cancelled, but then this is the outstanding amount, not the outstanding amount first and then the cancellation. And then the second part is that when you are cancelling, the cancellation fee has to be reasonable. In this case now, if you have a handset, then they will charge the remainder of the cost of the handset, not for future services that you are not going to enjoy. So that is the second part where consumers are billed for future services. And the third part that we saw that it was unconscionable is the issue of just that cohesion, wherein you see a supplier, because they have bigger muscle and the legal muscle, wherein they would threaten you to say you have to admit guilt in this instance, or acknowledge debt, so that we can continue now billing you or paying, kind of like now forcing you to pay the debt. So those are really serious issues.
And you're right, they do sound like very serious issues. I'm wondering though, where we're talking about vulnerable consumers that have, been blacklisted because of a fixed term contract with Vodacom, how did then the Commission come to the decision that 1 million rand would be the fine? I mean, is that sufficient?
For us, we felt that as a commission is that we wanted the conduct to stop, but then we will pray or we will wish or ask the tribunal to say, just bill the maximum, which is 1 million or their 10% of the annual turnover. But because now the contracts were cancelled and Vodacom promised us that they have actually changed their contract from the 75% to look at each matter on its own merit in terms of what the consumer is really owing, and then that those consumers whose names were blacklisted were removed. They showed a little bit of remorse, and then in that case, the tribunal saw it fit that the penalty that they were deserving, it was 1 million.
Okay, let's just to put some power back in the hands of consumers now. If you are one of those that feels that you got a SIM-only fixed-term contract with Vodacom between 2020 and 2021, as well as 2021, 2022, those financial years, you are facing, you're getting calls from debt collectors. Perhaps you've been blacklisted as a result of wanting to cancel that contract. What are the options? What do I do?
If you feel like that and you feel that indeed you have recordable means wherein you have cancelled, please file a complaint. And the other issue as well is that after filing your complaint, give us evidence, talk to us, so that when we ask for further details in relation to the contract, how you cancelled and all that, it is essential that as a consumer you really keep evidence, because now the 21 consumers that we sampled are the consumers that were willing to give us their contracts. They showed that indeed they have cancelled, and then they kept record. So we were easy to go back there and see and show that indeed the conduct was unconscionable. So please complain, file a complaint, trust in us. Sometimes it will take a little longer while we are investigating, but we will get there. We want you as a consumer from today to know that we will stand there and fight for your rights as much as we could with the little resources that we have.
All right. Well, we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Ms. Thezi Mabuza there, of course, is the Acting National Consumer Commissioner with the National Consumer Commission.